Everybody, welcome to the stream. Hope everybody's had a good day. Busy. Busy is good. Okay. The standard greeting. Hello. If you have a one-page comic idea that you can put in 1 or 2 sentences, put it here in the chat or in the comment section below the video if it's after the video is released. You can find all these afternoon drawing sessions in the live area on my YouTube channel. So if you want to look at past ones, that's where to find them all, not under videos. I'm trying to figure out how to clean up my YouTube and streamline that because it's not videos that count for me, it's lives. So we'll get there. But if you have a one-page comic idea, a couple lines, things like remarriage and dishes, that's one. Yesterday's was if wishes were horses, beggars would ride. So, hey, there's a fellow that suggested it. Hey, Gary, how you doing? I hope the page meets your standards, sir. It was a lot of fun. I had a lot of fun on this page here. I really did. I went a little bit to town on the layers, though. I compress all my layers at the end so that it just tightens the image up so that when I open it up again, I'm not like, how many layers are here? Which one's which? In case I want to do any adjustments. I find it easier to just chop it down into sections. So this one had all kinds of little bits and bobs, but the initial images are just good old-fashioned pen drawings. So I'll show you the originals. Switching the old camera Rooney. Okay, so originally it's just drawn on a heavy grade gray cardstock, nice and thick, and I drew the different elements. So you'll see these different, I've reversed this horse, I've tilted the angle on this one. This one's compressed in the first little starburst. Then this one is I cut it out as I did with the others. It's in the second starburst. So you can see how all these sort of disparate elements get stitched together. And in the background, I largely just drew in digitally. In fact, I added on to this guy's leg and the horse and did all kinds of stuff digitally after the fact. But you can see how the end result comes together. So I'm pretty pleased. Hey, how you doing, Dee Dee? Oh, welcome aboard. Dee Dee was really sweet again today. She keeps doing it to me. Super nice Dee Dee, telling people on her stream about what we're doing here each day. And in addition to that, she's got like the nicest stream on planet Earth. I've never seen so many people legitimately all seem to care and greet one another, and holy camoly, whole conversations going on the side. Dee Dee has a thing where put it in caps if you want to talk to her, because everybody's chatting. It's so nice. Anyways, okay, so that's those into the pile. There we go. So I am now at 69 pages on our, oh, that's very nice, Dee Dee. It was my pleasure. I was inspired by Dee Dee's collage work today. I had never in my lifetime considered just opening up photo books and actually doing collages in those books. That's genius to me. I was inspired by that. I was inspired by the quality of the collages. I was inspired by the fact that she doesn't just do assemblage, which most people do when they're doing collage work, is that it's just putting together photographic images. No, Dee Dee goes even further than that with paint and all kinds of other material. Oh, look out. It's the Pointer Sisters. Oh, no, it's Jim Luan. He's just so excited, he just can't hide it. Oh, Mo. That's good stuff. I love it. That's a song. I don't care who you are. If you grew up any time around when that was released, when that song comes on, you're going to get swept up. You are. Admit it. Just a little bit. Yeah, a little bit. It's too fun. Too fun under the sun. Okay, so I got a couple suggestions still outstanding right now from recent times. I've still got a number of things that I'm still catching up on from before. Before I get into that, let's talk about this. Jim Luan is working on a new film, ladies and gentlemen. It's called The Full Fungus. He's going to be kicking out all kinds of stuff about it soon. Very excited. I'm very excited to be a part of it. Really, really awesome that Jim asked me to be on board. And yeah, I'm really excited to see his his YouTube streams about it that are going to be coming up and all kinds of other fun. So pay attention to what Jim Luan's doing. And if you get a chance, follow his YouTube channel. But in addition to just following his YouTube channel for that, you got to watch his animations. They're absolutely brilliant. So that being said, I can't say enough how thankful I am to be asked to be a part. So, oh, what do I got here? 7. My one son just texted me 7. I don't have that many kids. And I'm pretty sure he's number 4. So, anyhow, the outstanding recent suggestions are X number of bits of advice from X number of Sasquatches. That's in process. I've already been doing that from all the sketch cards I did for a Sasquatch book that I illustrated this last year. Actually, here's the 2 books that so far have come out. I'm waiting on a couple of projects, and the problem with doing projects for independents is that when you're doing stuff with independents, it doesn't. Oh, thank you, Jim. Thank you, sir. Thank you once again. The problem with independent projects is sometimes they fall apart. Sometimes they just don't come out. It's an awful lot of work. If I'm getting paid for the work, I'm good as gold. Whether it comes out or not, I'm okay. I know what the art looks like. I did it, right? But at the same time, if it's not going to happen, that's a little disappointing for it not to be released for the time you've invested in doing it. But other times, independent guys, I'll put out some books from the stuff you do. So last year, this is the Sasquatch book that I did for Tardigrade Press out of Hamilton, Ontario. Very excited about this sucker. And I think they got that on their website, Tardigrade Press. But this was a lot of fun. So I did live streams where I think over the course of 3 days, I did something upwards of 30 sketch cards. Mixed media for that. So I got a page that's being assembled from that. And this is the release I put out last year of the collection of the first round of one-page comics. And yeah, so this was a lot of fun. There's 40 different ones in here, all kinds of different medium that I use to do these. This is mixed media with some tape, some Post-its, some colored ink pen, and a little bit of marker, it looks like, in there. So try to find an orange marker to match some of the orange Post-its that I had stuck to the page. You gotta have fun. Some more mixed media stuff. This is white, sorry for the shaking, white pen drawings on black paper. This is dip pen, so dipping ink with a quill. Little bits of everything. Here's a bit of mixed media with pencil crayon and so on and so forth. Anyhow, yeah. So there's some ballpoint too. But little bits of everything in that book. So we still got copies of that available on the website. But I just showed all of that, and I wasn't. Was I in camera? I was in camera. Okay. Chris is losing his mind. Yeah, Dee Dee called out my use of tapes today. She busted me. What Dee Dee's referring to, for those that don't know, is I will literally put masking tape down on paper for absolutely no reason, and then I'll take the image that I'm going to work on, and I'll just do it right on top of the modulated surface. Tape or Post-its or whatever sparks my fancy in the moment. I have beside my work area a container full of pens that you can always see in the side of the shot, but I also have this, which is just this whole stack of random bits and bobs of paper that I will constantly stick on the surface before I even start drawing. It doesn't make a lot of sense to some, but the whole reason behind that started with sometimes the hardest part of a person getting started is that pure, lovely piece of paper. It's beautiful, isn't it? Look at that. Just this lovely piece of green paper. I don't want to wreck this green paper. It's just really nice, heavy cardstock, and it looks so perfect. And forget it. Put some tape on it. That's my answer to that. Once I do something like that, then I'm in. It's a lot of fun, right? And then I'll do things like this where I'll draw a picture and I'll stamp all over it or something like that. Go over the lines that I want scan this, and then in the image, I'll edit out all this, the extra material, the extraneous material around the figure. So now we're only getting that cool pattern on the dress. So I do random things, right? You can find that on a page from, I don't know, 2 weeks ago, something like that. It's a mixed medium page that I did, but okay, so today's suggestion comes from, look at this. Look who showed up. Oh, thank you very much, Dee Dee. That's very nice of you. Oh, here's the troublemaker. Thanks for picking my suggestion. Can't wait to see where you take it. I'm going to give a star to that one. I'm going to give a star to Dee Dee, too. Give a star to Jim. I'm giving stars out left, right, and center. Gary, I'm going to give you a star, too. Hello. All right, so, so today's suggestion is remarriage and dishes. This comes from a funny place. There's a funny thing as you get older when you're watching television and you look at the typeface that they use for new shows that are coming out. And because your eyes might not be what they once were, you read it wrong. So there's a show on TV called Remarriage and Desires. It's one of those, K-drama romantic things, romantic intrigue, whatever. And we read it as remarriage and dishes. So, which to me seems more interesting and more appropriate. So I've got some ideas about where to go with this. I've also got the Sasquatch page to work. But if anybody else has any one-page comic suggestions, one-page ideas, feel free to throw them at me. Some of the examples. Okay, let's just go through some examples for recently. One was Richard Simmons dealing with the Cheshire Cat. Urban Sasquatch hunters. Werner Herzog hosting a beauty pageant. Horror monsters doing the Brady Bunch theme. Dee Dee had a suggestion of whole fish on a pizza. So I did it. And I give, of course, yesterday's page, the one I posted at the start of the show. If wishes were horses, beggars would ride. So, all right, remarriage and dishes. So, but again, if anybody else has some stuff they want to throw at me, let me know. Today's musical selection is Car Seat Headrest is what they're called. Car Seat Headrest. And the album is Teens of Denial. I like them. They're one of those discordant garagey noise bands. I sometimes you gotta have a little bit of crazy, right? All right, so I got some pencil crayons out. Let's get some more light on this. Let's get some light on this situation. Okay, what do we got? Here's our first one coming in. Future one page. Hold on, I got to get the book. If I don't write them in the book, oh, heavens of Betsy. I don't know who Betsy is, but heaven's already there for her. Okay. Future one page. All right, that's an interesting one. Close-up of a face divided. Divided up. Like a map, like a map, like a map, like a map. One of the best songs ever written for a television show, by the way. If you get a chance to ever see Dora the Explorer, whether it's your kids, your grandkids, your neighbors' kids, whatever it is, just turn it on for yourself. It's fun. There's a song in it where every time she brings the map out as she's exploring, the map sings, "I'm the map, I'm the map, I'm the map." Yeah. All right. So, close-up of a face divided up like a map with each section listed as its own country. Okie dokie. And then what's Dee Dee say? You've been hanging around Josh and Risk too much, Jim. This is in reference to, for those that don't know, somebody that a few of us know named Joshua Kemble. He's a brilliant storyteller. He's working on a new book. But he's got caught up in playing Risk at night online on I got excited because I'm like, oh, Risk, which version do you have? No, he's just talking about online. I'm like, you should play Risk Legacy. He's literally just playing the video game. And so that translates into Chris is out. I'm not a video game guy. These are some fun pencils I got for $4 a package. They're nice. They're soft. They got a kind of a creamy vibe. But I got these at local dollar store. And I realized after having visited 3 separate dollar stores to pick all these up, these 4 packages is the entire 72 pencil set. Very excited because I can tell you honestly, I have never owned a 72 pencil set before now. It's a rather inexpensive way to buy them, sure, but it did. All right, so when I'm going about doing an image, starting a page, you know, honestly, the first thing that goes through my head is to try to have a little bit of, conception point. You know, you got that. How am I going to go about this? What am I going to do? How am I going to start? What am I going to use for laying it out and drawing it? And I just pick a color and off we go. Yeah, the only problem I have with those is the metal tins make too much noise for my liking. Okay, so when I'm thinking about whatever the idea is, oh, Dee Dee says, hi, I'm married to a creative. Nice. Yeah, so when I'm going about sitting down and trying to figure out what's the approach I'm going to take to this, oftentimes, if I could just come up with an initial image and just get started. I think a big problem that a lot of people have when they start working on comics, or any storytelling or any visual imagery whatsoever, is we spend so much time in that front-loaded section of it. You know, you spend so much time, well, I want it to be in blue, and I really like daffodil. Just start painting a blue daffodil, right? I mean, you'll find you're going to make more progress painting the daffodil than you are talking about painting the blue daffodil, or what other things am I going to assemble into it. Sometimes it has to be kinetic, and sometimes it has to be trial and error. Put stuff together, if you're doing it on a finished, 2-dimensional, 3-dimensional format, if you're doing a specific finished project, it's hard for you to sit down and say, I'm going to be able to hodgepodge a bunch of images together. That's where Photoshop comes in handy, if you can scan your stuff and put it into the computer. But if you have the affordance to do that, please do. Otherwise, if you're thinking about it as a 2-dimensional image, pick a side. Pick a side or pick the center, is what I usually say. Start laying out the image and however you go about it. And then you'll build the rest of it around it. But give yourself that space to play. So when I'm sitting down and doing that, I'll just generally, because we're in the Western world here in Canada, where I am, I tend to start on the left because narratively we tend to read from left to right. And because principally as a storyteller, I'm approaching these as one-page stories. But I don't always do that. Sometimes it's just a matter of playing with different specific images. There's no hard and fast rule about which way I need to go about it. So in order to keep myself from wiggling around like a worm, I am pulling some of my pages out. I will cast aside my clipboard. Corbin is sleeping over there in the chair, so I don't have to worry about him. So I threw the papers on his clipboard. Too bad. Dee Dee said, hi, I'm married to a creative. Married to a creative, I believe, is checking in and out, Dee Dee. So that's probably why they haven't said hi back. Just they will when they pop in again, if they have the chance to pop in again. I know they're at work, so. But it was very nice of you saying hi to our new visitors. Okay. Although married to a creative's been here before. So for me, first thought for me is to choose what's the medium I'm going to use. I've been doing some black and white pages for a few days, so I need to get into some color again. And well, I like drawing in the pencil crayons. I also like drawing in marker just as well, but I think I did marker last when I was working in color. So today's pencil. It's a lot of blabbing, fella. Just get to the picture. All right, so how's that picking up? Is it picking up, or do I need to use a different one? Is the line? Can you see the line? Let's see how we go here. So what I'm really doing is really lightly, not so light that you can't see it, hopefully. Yeah, I'm going to change colors. What I'm initially doing is just throwing down some of that form, and I won't fill in the entirety of the lines that I'm putting down. I'm not going to be so hung up as to say that a little better, a little better. There we go. You know, I need to put down all of my marks, but I am going to get the rough forms of a couple of figures here. And with the title like Remarriage and Dishes, well, it's kind of in the title. A part of this visual image, at least on some level, is kind of in that title. I got remarried. I was married before and was single dad for a while, and then I met Lori and got remarried. Best thing in my life I ever did. Best decision ever. Kids are all grown up and good and fun. Yeah, it's nice when you can find somebody that you engage in, you know, all different things in your lives together. It's kind of nice. All right, so I was watching an interesting documentary yesterday. Now, there is a horror artist, a manga horror artist named Junji Ito. The creepiest books, okay? So if you go running to look at his work, I'm going to apologize now. But beautiful, you know, his ability to do what he does, but creepy. Junji Ito keeps a rubber pencil, or a rubber eraser, I'm so sorry, stuck to one of his fingers. So as he's drawing, he does this. I have never seen a soul do this before in my life. And I got to tell you, I like it. That's what a notion that is, you know. So how he keeps it stuck on so well, I don't know. Because the size he has is so much smaller than mine. I don't know what he does to keep it on his finger the whole time. Maybe sweat, I don't know. Okay, so see, I've gotten too tight with the lines, so let's loosen up here. Have some fun, throw some shapes around. So I'm doing this sort of light breakdown of the whole deal. My principal concern was that you're not going to see the lines as I'm putting them in. So I think that now that I'm comfortable with the fact that this value is picked up in camera, but a lot of this is going to be, of course, hidden underneath the other colors that we use. If anybody has any other suggestions of ideas towards remarriage and dishes, let me know. My headspace here is dishes. Am I right? Anybody that you know, has had a relationship where you spend a great deal of time together, dishes is a thing. You know, it's one thing to, I've gone to somebody's house and done the dishes once. It's another thing to have to do dishes every night. And in a great deal of relationships, that gets interesting. So I could just kind of like that fun little, it's whether it's a conscious nod or not, I don't know. But that's a beautiful thing about suggestions, is that when we look at an idea from how the initial idea suggested to us, they're not always the same thing. There's always a progressive change from one state to another. In this case, the state is, the idea suggested is intended with this in mind. You know, maybe you could do this, maybe. And then the next state change is how that gets processed through this meat grinder, right? So I'm making some interesting shapes in the folds, trying to play this around a little bit. Give that shirt a little bit of character, pardon me. You know, just giving ourselves some lines, some movement here, not getting too tied up in it all. It's The action's the most important part, not the specifics of the spit and polish of the image. So we spent 25 minutes putting the proper lines down to draw this fellow's behind. Or we'll just, there we go. Good enough. Move on. That's the way my brain works. Another thing about state changes, here's an interesting thing that came up today during Dee Dee Willingham's live stream, Monday and Wednesday mornings. Check it out if you can. Dee Dee talked about the collage work that she does, which is already finished images, by the way, would be used as source images for her to then paint on canvases. The finished result of one or the other of those is generally where other people might go, but she was specifically putting together collaged images to step up and onto canvas. So I found that interesting. But there's a definite state change. All right, so let's push the leg out a little bit, get some, you tend to find with the old pajama pants there that they balloon out and bunch up in the weirdest of places. No matter how fit and healthy we are. All right, so here's the cloth. Oh, the all-important cloth. Many a dish argument over the cloth. Thankfully, not in our house. But we've all experienced them at some point in time in our lives. All right, so there's the image as I'm drawing it, my head goes through a couple of different story dynamics because of the fact that I write and illustrate, I'm often thinking about story dynamics even while I'm doing the visual aspect of an image. You know, here he is holding this cloth with this expectant look. And as I'm going to draw his partner in here beside him, how many times have you ever seen people doing dishes and one person just stands there with the cloth waiting expectantly on the other person to have the dish done? So that's kind of fun to me. You know, you want to capture those little sections, those little slivers of time. I've talked about this before, but it bears repeating. There's a London area artist, absolute fantastic Canadian artist, and if you get a chance to look at his paintings, they're brilliant. I'm talking about Jack Chambers. Jack Chambers talked about something called perceptual realism, and what perceptual realism is the fact that we, as visual people, try to capture an image, an association of a moment, a place and time, an object, this memento mori, this remembrance of this thing that may be gone. You know, this thing that we enjoyed or appreciated at one, you know, Venice, whatever it is, right? Portrait of an animal, or it's just something that has some particular, or the essence of, if you're a real abstractionist. But the challenge of doing this, of doing something at least in some measure of representative way, is that you're never going to get it right. And the reason you're never going to get it right is that you remember, okay, we were standing here in the plaza, right? And I want to do a painting about this view from here. Okay, but I really liked when we walked about 100 feet that way and we saw this view, or remember when we were talking, but you're just standing sort of still in the picture, but there's this really great conversation. So all these little moments, all these little overlapping things that are happening, you're not going to capture those in one static image. Sequential media is fun. It adds an additional moment, just as animation does, just as film does, just as television does, in that you can capture a sequence of moments in order to try to capture this. Here we are standing here, taking a picture with you standing rigid against there. Then we have this big conversation. Then we walk down there and take a picture of that place. So you can do those sequence of events, whether it's panel to panel, or whether it's a series of images overlapping with the animation, or whether it's just running film, video, whatever it is now. And we can capture those things. But when it comes to a static image, how do we do that? And so his answer was, in the context of, here's this couple doing dishes together, okay? And she's washing a plate as he's standing there expectantly waiting to dry said plate. Well, another way that we could do this is have a second hand of his reaching over to the side here as he puts a dish on the dish rack, or he puts a dish on the on the shelf. It's just a floating arm where he's putting a dish away. Or here she is looking down at the sink, but then we also have a ghost face of hers as she's looking, sideways towards the guy as she's talking to him. So there's ways that we can push those boundaries of time and space within a flat two-dimensional image. Perceptual realism. It's the perception of the realistic moment. I really like stuff like that. It's a little heady, I know, to some, but others, it's like, what? Oh, of course, Others are, Chris, you're crazy. But it's things like this that I think about, because after a while of drawing X amount of things, you start trying to look for ways to break the form. And what I mean by that is it's important that whatever it is that we're doing, at a certain point, we turn it on its side, challenge the conventions of it. I'm in a good zone here. I'm in a good place creatively in my head. I really appreciate the suggestions that people are putting in. And anybody that's going to see this video, there is nothing that you can suggest that I'm going to go, that's stupid. You gotta have fun. There they are. There's Married to a Creative. There's nothing that, no suggestions that'll come out that I'm not going to at least try to swing the bat at. I might not in any way, shape, or form come towards what your 1 or 2 sentence suggestion might represent to you in your head, but at the very least, I'm going to try to figure out something out of that idea, that expression of an idea. So if it's, well, I want to figure out how the whole image works, you don't have to do that. I'll take care of that part. And no judgments. And in fact, if anything, it's the great appreciation on my part, when people are engaging. And it's a way that I can engage with people that are viewing this here crazy old YouTube channel. All you hip cats and dolls. Okay, so in roughing in the form, it's very similar in the same way as to, by having this underlying line, it's very similar in the same way as you were to put an underpainted value, or for you to rough in a composition if you're painting with this one flat tone, right? So that tends to be the way I kind of look at this, and that's why I don't get too caught up in the fact that it might be a random color or whatever it is. It's just something that I'm trying to put together that you can see. All right, so I'm trying to put some softness to these features here. We got a rather broad forehead here. I'd like to have a softer slope on the lady's face. Just small representative marks that we put down, that can quickly intimate to our viewers if this is some core things about our character. Is this a male? Is this a female? Whatever. These tiny components of our composition should not be the things that are confusing. Should not be the things that is that a guy or a girl doing the dishes? I don't want you hung up on that. So I'll push aspects a little bit farther, and it's just specifically in order to simplify that part of the question and get you to start to look at the larger image, or to stick with the text or that I'm putting down for the contextual narrative of the story, whatever it is. But something like, I can't tell if that's a dude or a gal. Yeah. We got more things to worry about than that. Hey, Chris. Yes? Why don't you use a ruler? A what? you're right. I should use a ruler. You could get a ruler now, Chris. Yes, I could. I could do that. But I'm complicated. And it involves me turning around and getting it from over there. And we're almost there. We got a rough idea of the lines. We'll clean it up in post. All right, so we've got a quick assembly of our composition here. Just throwing in some more of these elements. Trying to keep it simplified. It's the other colors that we're going to put down in a moment that are going to tell us what it is that we need to know in our image. It's a crazy line. Get the ruler, Chris. I will. Yeah, those lines are just contrived. Anyways, it doesn't matter. We'll fix it. All right, so a couple of little choice little bits and bobs we can do to simplistic approaches to yeah, I'm getting the ruler. You're right. You're right. You've been saying it the whole time. This is the coolest ruler on planet Earth. This is I've used a lot of rulers in my day. I can't speak highly enough about this, what this ruler does for me. I am not a straight line guy, and I'm not really great at measuring. I'm really great at guesstimating, if that's not a word it is now. But when it comes to ruling out square lines for panels or pages and the like, yeah, not a strong suit for me. But the beauty of this ruler is that there's so many different cross lines to it. It's absolutely brilliant for squaring off your image. There we go. Clean this up a little bit. Might as well put the rest of the covers in here. So, quick pieces of information I find really help for making people understand that they are standing at a sink. And one of those quick pieces of information, of course, can be the faucet. So just throw that in here. There you go. Oh, it's a sink. They're at a sink. They're doing dishes. And then you can, what I call populate. I don't know what other people call it, but I call it populating the image. Drawing just the different parts of material that you'll have in a kitchen. So in this case, I'm putting a coffee pot over here. Right? Or, we can put the tray for the dishes on this side. Now, this doesn't leave a lot of space, this way of drawing like this. I recognize that it doesn't leave a lot of space for clean whites. And what I mean by clean white images or clean white parts of your drawing is the unfettered paper, the parts of your paper that you haven't put any previous marks on. But, I'm okay with that if you are. All right, so here's another little tricky doodle. The line that's here for the dish tray rises above the back line of the sink counter area. And the reason it does that is so it doesn't blend through, so you read it as raised. Just like I'm going to put ribbon column There's a tap. Oh my goodness, it's a sink. Okay, so, and then I'll throw a winder up here. And then let's get to cracking and putting some, let's juice this drawing up with some color, huh? So the initial image that I'm putting down here is the couple that I'm using as examples of our story here. They are doing the dishes together in the sink in the kitchen. And, you just got to find a place to start, and that's where we're going to start this piece overall. Try to keep your spacing the same on both sides for your window frame. Right. If anybody has any questions or anything else, just let me know. Chris, what's wrong with you? I do not need to be heavily concentrating on what I'm doing here. That's all we need to be concentrating. So I'm going to put an inside line to the window. Got some schmutz on my pencil and I don't like it. A bit internal trim with some caulking on it. See, my brain tries to piece together what lines represent what. And then, of course, we get the liberty of putting some trees and the like, or maybe a plant in the window ledge here. We get to play with that as we go. And there's no real hard set rule system here that says anything has to be sort of set in stone. Like if you want to change things up as you go, there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. I'm one of those turkeys that doesn't, if I'm drawing in pencil crayon, I'm not using anything other than pencil crayon. I'll use whatever I need to use in a moment. And so that's why, in all honesty, I end up doing mixed media a lot. Is that if I feel like putting some white paint in here or whatever it is that I want to put in, I'll do it. I'm thinking about how my wife has little trays underneath her plants for catching the water inside there. All right, so we got a plant on the windowsill here, and we can do some fun little bits and bobs in the exterior of the house here. We'll show a couple of trees and plants and whatnot outside. I'm reading a newsletter that asks, can there be a greater way to create community than washing dishes together? Yes. Think of a lot of other things I think people would like to do, but yeah, either way, I'll use it as some inspirato. I'll just have people randomly in fields doing dishes, but they'll be doing it together as a group, as a herd, grazing on the different, grazing on the weed of the field and doing dishes at the same time. Somebody has a hose they're dragging around behind them. See, my brain just goes south of cheese. I'm sorry. It is a fun notion. I've been asked in the past, can you be serious? Yes. Okay. So here we go. We've got, you know what? I better keep the sucker aside so I remember what the core color I'm using here for drawing, because I will forget it. All right. So first thing I want to do is get some of these values down for some of these areas. And for me, I'm going to, I've got little setups on the side here. I have this tray that has a whole bunch of mark making medium in it, but I'll show you. Just because I've got a tray. It's actually an old printer's tray. So this is where you would gather up all your letters at the shelf units of all the metal letters that you're going to use for a piece you're going to do. And then you'd walk over and slot them into the cage, or the gauge, I'm sorry, and put together a newspaper article, right? And that's how old school printing would be done. So it's got, you know, a lot of typeface on the back of it about the Toronto Printing Company. But this is what I keep to the side. So I've got erasers available. I've got a basin that collects all my sharpenings from you know, the pencils that I'm using and so on and so forth. But of course, there's all kinds of other mark making media there, handy dandy for whatever might inspire me in the moment. Oh, here we go. Anonymous. I didn't see you there for a minute. That's a camouflage joke, not an anonymous joke. I'll work on that. They do say washing dishes together will save your marriage. Is that right? Top the presses. Who's that? Here you go. I know you meant stop. That's a line from Batman for those that don't know. Actually, I remember it from the Prince soundtrack to the 1989 Batman movie. Tried to put that on in the van recently. And, you know, you remember things differently than they are. All right, so I'm putting in some of the tones. I tend to build up. I don't know how other people go about building in their flesh tones, but I'll start in with an orange, and I'm looking at the different planes and how light works around those. There we go. So we're getting some of his arm in here. Just, you got to have some fun with your color too. I mean, I tend to be fairly light in my application for putting down pencil crayons. I tend to build up. And so it can be, you know, it can look like it's, how long is it? Just paint, just color it, paint guy. Move on. That's my subconscious voice. If you hear me saying that sort of blather, that's what I'm doing. That's the little Chris in my head that says nonsensical things. Come on, hurry it up, fella. Quit dancing. Sit down. All right. Complimentary. Bye. Thank you, my dear. So I pretty hard and fast will come in a complementary value for a base red, or I know that a complementary for an orange is a purple, but I'm trying to flatten out the red part that's inside the orange. Soften that up a little bit so it's not so punchy, because that's what orange can do, is that it can become a very clear and distinct value. And then I'm going to come in with some of this little red. What kind of red? I have no idea. I call this kind 12. Why 12, Chris? Because that's the number on the pencil. So now when I start one part of an image in the pencil crayon, that does not necessarily mean that the entire page is going to be just in pencil crayon. Oftentimes, and you'll see examples of this in pages like Lord, I can't remember what the name of the character is, but there's something like Lord Farnsworth and his lads. You know, it's that one-page comic. It's a really old one too. It's like the first or second one of this run that I've started doing, and I'm at 52. This is number 52 in a row. So it's a while ago, but half of that, the center image is pencil crayon, and the side images in this triptych panel story is marker. is just straight on old fine tip markers. So I was learning more about YouTube today, and I have discovered some of these features are only on your phone that YouTube presents and offers. And so I've just discovered Shorts and Community and where I can put those suckers on. I've been looking all over on my PC, basically pulling apart YouTube, trying to figure out how do I post shorts to some of these things, or how do I post updates for people that tune in and watch what this Looney Tune does. I just finally figured it out. Orange, like a fake tan in a bottle. I like that. That could be a one-page comic, you know. See, that's the sort of the juicy thoughts that pop through your head that you got to listen to. You know? Like sand through an hourglass. These are my soup recipes for the week. It doesn't, you know, there's a million things that you don't really necessarily, it's just a fine little statement, but for a moment, but at the same time, as if you allow yourself to build on that and to pursue that as a story, some kind of story idea, some kind of underlying notion that you can explore further, there's an endless supply of things that can empower us to do whatever it is that we ever might have once dreamed with story. It doesn't have to be this long, drawn-out, elaborate project. It's just a thing that I think a lot of people short themselves with, is that they I'm going to do this 700-page book. It's the first thing I've ever drawn. Oh, for heaven's sakes. That's a big hurdle to start off the race with. You know what I mean? All right, I'm going to write that down in the book, Anonymous, before I forget. Because that's a fun notion. I have no idea what to do with it, but that's a fun notion. So that's what we're talking about, folks. That's a fun suggestion of a one page. And I try to write them down as soon as I hear them. Orange. Like a fake tan in a bottle. Another testament. I'm going to write that down, part of it too. That's fun. I squared it. I didn't cube it, just squared it. All right. So I'm throwing down some of the values in composition just to finish rounding out this fleshy area. What does QT tan mean? What does that mean? Okay, so here's the next suggestion that's been put in today. Orange like a fake tan in a bottle. Another testament. There you go. What does QT tan mean, please? I'm but a simple fella. Another thing I suggest when doing pencil crayon is don't use black. Don't do it. You look at that black pencil and you say, no. Is that what that's called? A quick tan? Oh, there you go. Oh, no. I should just imagine that stuff. Quick tan that turns you orange back in the 60s. Yeah, like shoe polish. That's what I heard it described as many years ago. I heard that the tanning materials, spray-on tan or tanning creams or whatever they were, the tanning cream was like a shoe polish is what I heard. And I'm like, oh, that's a terrifying prospect. All right, so I'm coming in now with a light blue. And this looks like a kind of cobalt. Looks like a bit of a cyan and looks like a cobalt. Or can't you just say blue? Eh? Anonymous says, sadly, I have used it. Well, I mean, come on, you got Statler and Waldorf as your picture for yourself there. They're orange. Oh, it's not so bad. If you look, I don't know if you can see behind me. Hold on. Right there. This is just 1 second. And I'll get them down. I have Statler and Waldorf here in my studio. And I have them up here sitting in their chairs behind me, keeping an eye on whatever I'm doing. Get to it, frog! You know. So I love that somebody's got the Muppets as there. I got them all over my studio here, let's be honest. I got Dr. Teeth and the Electric Mayhem over there. I've got Rolf the dog over here. I've got the giant hairy guy, you know, the big nose and all that. I've got Muppets all over the space in here. I like them. It's Muppets are fun. They're really fun, and I've seen some of the modern versions of them, and it's too bad. I know that the intent is there, but the execution is terrible. You're never going to capture moments again like George Burns singing around with a bunch of Muppets around a piano. You're never going to have that again. It's just not the same energy. I think it's because it felt like there's less artifice, less refinement that everything has to have today. Okay, so I've got this. I think it's like a cobalt. And as with any of the other colors, and the reason I set them over here to the side is that I'm going to move these around the composition. So whenever we're drawing in color, we have to remember that there has to be checks and balances, little movements, little weights of these values interspersed throughout our image. You can't just put blue in one place and go, perfect, right? Unless it's a specific note, a specific focus that you're trying to have people get. So try to figure out ways to just play those around a little bit. Malcolm says, I first saw Alice Cooper on the Muppets. That was a really elaborate episode. They went all out. They really enjoyed having him on the show, clearly, because they built a whole cemetery set and had him do his whole welcome to my nightmare, and they did a fantastic, really, really top of the line feature at the time, where they had some of the Muppets as ghosts floating through the sky, and it's just impressive stuff. That show would go above and beyond. All right, so I'm finding some little spots, little jigs and jags throughout the image, little places where I'm going to put some of these little values interspersed here. And it just sort of helps you to just have everything throughout. Oh, Judy says, hiya, Salty. And Salty says, hello. Somebody's waking up over there. Oh, maybe it's just snoring. Take these moments when Corbin isn't right beside me to. Can't always be beside me. All right. Lori and I were at a grocery store last night picking up some snacks, a couple of things to bring over to our oldest and the kids so they have some stuff for their lunches tomorrow. And we got to get some granola bars. And I just looked at the first granola bars that I could find. There we go. There's granola bars. And sweet and salty. They're not going to eat those. I got to admit, I don't think I've ever looked at what granola bars are called on a package before. I don't think I've ever read what different granola bars there are. And I just had this epiphany at the moment of looking at the shelf and realizing there's all kinds of different granola bars. They're not just different shapes. Oh boy. Yeah, that's the one. So I'm putting down, this is basically like a raw, like an umber, this pencil here. I know that I'm using terms that we largely associate with paint when I come up with the colors for this purely numbered system of pencils that I bought it inexpensively. But I think it translates enough. Brown. Dee Dee's nickname for Malcolm, for Salty, is Chex Mix. I think, is Chex Mix very salty? I haven't lived. You've never had Chex Mix, Chris? What's the matter with that? I probably have. We just call it different stuff here. All right. So there we go. That's coming together all right. I'm pleased with that. Pleased enough anyways. A fun thing that you can do in Photoshop is that when you're drawing a person's outfit, their clothing, a really fun thing to do is to put in textures. Put in little bits and bobs, little patterns for their clothing. And it just gives one more grounding sense to the image because we don't all wear just flat colors. I mean, even this shirt has a fantastic little octagonal. I think it's an octagonal image that's repeated throughout the entirety of my shirt. And I generally am a guy who just wears flat colors. And then my wife picks up outfits for me, and suddenly I have style. And, oh, this is a different color than you normally wear. Or, oh, this has a nice pattern in it. Because if it was left to my own devices, it would be black shirts or Hawaiian shirts. That's it. It's not entirely true. Purely Hawaiian shirts, that's all. That's all anybody's ever seen me wear on this. So I'm moving the pencil around. I know that other people are far more proficient at this than I am, but I do tend to try to move the pencil around a little bit just to move those lines, move your eye around in the composition if everything just isn't up and down with your drawing. So I did this. That's what I was doing. These are some good suggestions that are coming in, by the way, folks. I appreciate those. There we go. I'm pleased with that. Not overly elaborate. Does the job. Job well done. Well. So this is what I'm talking about when talking about building it up as we go. But as I've got this umber laid throughout here, so now when I come in with this this little blue image, you can see how it just sort of grays it out, just sort of flattens it out. You know, and if I come in harder in areas, which is still not that hard, I pressed it there, I'm going to come in with the alternate so that it builds up that graying value system. That now, I'm not saying that black, if you use black, you've committed a pencil gray. There's no rules. There's no rules on anything. I'm just talking about the challenge that I set for myself. Stay away from that black pencil, because sometimes we lean too hard into things. And if I were to come at it with a black pencil crayon in here, I find that really quickly I've probably been overly, taking too much liberty with this black pencil. And it's hard to step back. It's hard to step back from pencil crayon because you've put all these deeper values down. Well, now what am I going to do? So that's why I tend to work them up like this. Which also means that nothing has one color in it, but that's all right. That's all right. Nobody's getting hurt. And following, thinking about the back, thinking about the planes in the back, about how the structure of the body works. Hey, Chris, you got a piece of paper? Some scrap paper. Okay, so if this is your back, right? Like if you've got your, what I'm thinking about underneath here is I'm going to half draw the skeleton and half not. So I'm thinking about how the spine moves through the back and how your shoulders roll over up into your neck, right? So when I talk about planes, I'll go so far in my head as to divide them up like this. What do we got? Somebody said, Anonymous has said, buy an older version of Photoshop. The new subscription model is evil. I don't know if you've heard me on the streams before, Anonymous. I use the Photoshop program from 2005. That's the one I use. I use my Photoshop. If you look at the screen, it's so old. The version that I use is so basic and so old because I absolutely refuse to pay monthly for that. Back in the day, those would cost $60, I think, which was a large amount of money in the 1990s for a drawing program. But by gum, those things will last you forever. It's the old systems, the cards, the discs, whatever you used in the earlier days, and you just switch it over to a key and just move it along with you. But I like pushing the tool. It's not necessarily the tool as it is what you do with it, right? See, I'm finding lots of things that I can pull out of Photoshop, and I'm quite pleased. So this is not, I know that this is going to be a really contradictory way that I look at the body, but so when I'm looking at the body, I'm thinking of the body in this regard of how our form, bends around. I'm not just talking about the skeleton that's inside, and I'm not just talking about all the muscles that are on the surface. What I'm talking about is the way that the body has this sort of a system of shapes that moves around over this rough frame. And to me, if I could figure that out, if I can get these elements in here, and it's half looking at it as plane, it's half looking at it as the anatomy, and it's 3 halves, Chris. It's keeping in mind some of the aspects of where the anatomy is underneath. Yes, but at the same time, trying to keep track of the shapes on the surface and how skin works. There's a really fantastic artist named Mitch Bird that I've talked about recently. Mitch Bird, especially if you're a lady, you'll appreciate Mitch Bird because Mitch Bird draws in some of the drawing lessons that he would do for Blue Line Pro, Mitch will draw women in all kinds of different form, and specifically that he's trying to example to the reader or to the artists that are learning from him that we're not all built the same, and so we need to have an appreciation for the underlying structure of anatomy, skeleton, but at the same time we need to understand the mass that is our physical selves on top of that. So it's our skin, our muscles, right? Sinews, all the business. And fat. You know, we all have different degrees of body fat. And that's what makes us all unique. I mean, it's the fact that we all have skeletons. That's, you know, everybody's got a skeleton. And, you know, I've got a larger skeleton than average people because of my size. But it's still a skeleton. It's still, the framework is still there. The difference is masculine, feminine skeletons, yes, but it's the way that our body, our fatty deposits and our muscular deposits, like our muscular movements in our body, builds or forms up. So take a look at Mitch Bird and how he draws that, and he shows you that weight is really important. How fabric drops and moves around, or how we have to understand about this slope in the neck. And so I tend to look at a body like that sort of random, really random frame structure that I just showed you, which is going on in my head under the surface of whoever and whatever it is that I'm drawing. Is necessarily something that I can say, do it this way. No, it's not. But neither, you know, am I one that kind of says, this is the way to do a thing, because you're going to have different ways to do it. And I'm going to look at how you're doing it at some point and go, hey, I'm going to do that instead. That's easier. So find out what works for you. Find out what helps you to understand anatomy if you need to get one of those little figures. But the people that spend their whole time just copying other people's images or referring to somebody else's specific image and not having taken any time to have a comprehensive understanding of some degree of how shapes and forms work together, you're kind of holding yourself back. Okay, so as I'm moving these different values that I've shown you around through the image, you can see as these little hits on the arm gives it a little bit more dimensionality each time. Anonymous has said that the older ones are referring to Photoshop. The older ones are still very good. Oh, yeah, I think they are. I think they're. It's again, it's not always the tool. It's what you do with the tool. And if that means the new programs are, hey, here's just one button, one click, and it does this thing for you, well, that's great. That's fantastic. But that doesn't change the fact that you have to rent a platform as opposed to owning the tool itself. It's like running a classroom and constantly borrowing the ruler, except for you have to pay for it every time. You can't trust on that ruler. You can't rely on it because there's 6 other kids in the class that are borrowing it, right? So they're both wearing baggy clothes, but I'm trying to make his shoulders more broad. Oh, you see what I did? I didn't even do his elbow here. Oh, am I crazy? Boom, boom, boom. Yeah, I know that there's different programs that people swear by. If anybody has a different one that you use other than Photoshop, let me know. Feel free to tell people what that is. I don't know. Maybe you're going to have a bonding moment. It's the only thing I ever use, man. Clip Studio. That's not me, by the way. I have not got Clip Studio. Why? Because I have an old version of Photoshop. And I'm that cheap. Okay, so now that I've thrown some more values into our people's faces here, get some really lightly putting this orange down to give a little bit more to the skin of our characters here, leaving some areas, of course, for reflection. Light, light, light. Can't tell you how old I was when I really figured that out. It's just easier to paint the whole thing in the same color. I have to make a decision at this point for the backsplash or the background image. Now, I'm going to throw down this really subtle value of this light green. For the backsplash. Now, I'm going to put more value on top of it, but for now, let's get something happening there. So these are those weird kind of triangular shaped pencils. And what time are we at? 116. Sometimes you kind of, hey, I find it easier to sharpen them because if not, I'm just stuck to this weird challenge where, because it's got 3 different flat heads on the top of your pencil, it's like, oftentimes I try to roll over my pencil as I'm working. Just a habit, so keeping from having to sharpen them less. You can't do that with these triangular pencils. There we go. So we've got this value moving through. So I'm not sure how much it picks up. Let me move it up. So you can, I know I go really softly, but by putting that really light green in there, it helps me, it gives me a clearer understanding of the different parts, the different planes, the different separations of these people in the foreground and the dishes, etc., etc. I'll cut more and put it in over there. This, honestly, I find that a lot of the material that's around your central image, it's almost superfluous. It's my principal focus is really to tell the story in the central part of this composition where I want you drawn to. I'm not worrying about 1,000 details on the extremists of the image. So it's rather hard, the amount that I put that down there, but that's okay. Purposeful. We'll come in with that brown. But you can see how these 2 values over top of each other create this sort of nice neutral dark gray I try to shake it up. I try to shake it up over the course of the week as I'm doing different pages, and because I try to have a general understanding of how to use X amount of different medium. I think it's also important that even if I'm working on one project in one specific medium, because in my mornings I'm generally working on pages for other things, and so for me it's important, when I'm taking this time each day, an hour and a half, 2 hours on the outside, depending on how I'm feeling, and I get to spend that moment with you. The point is that it's this time that allows me to bone up on these other medium. Make sure I'm still dialed in. And so that's why you'll see me use a diverse amount of things. Is that I'm just trying to keep myself fresh with those things, So as this goes along, you can find it's more easily understandable about how things come together, and the image gets tied together. I used the resource image. I used a reference image when I drew this composition, and the principal part of that, the use of the resource image, was really just for the characters. And then even as I'm just for the structure, just for the framing of the two of them standing beside each other. But when it comes to, as soon as you start putting those folds in, as soon as you start defining that environment around them, you've got to stop looking at your reference. You have to. It's far more important that you're thinking through the different aspects of your composition. You're thinking through the different marks that you're making in order to tell your image. You're not, unless your objective aim is to sit down and to reproduce what you're seeing in that photograph. If that's the case, well, stand by your reference. And I've got nothing to say about that. I mean, if that's your creative thing and that works for you, do your thing. And, well, that's not real, blah, blah. Nobody has time for other people's opinions on your working process. The whole history of art, I'm telling you, and the great masters cheated. And what I mean by that is, we know for a fact that even Caravaggio used a pinhole camera. We know that. Do we have evidence, results of developed images with the pin? No. That's not what I'm talking about. Camera obscura, or he would have a system of refractive mirrors and light through the ceiling, which is ostensibly like a camera, so that he has his models doing their thing over there, maybe even in another room. He has primed his painting surface with a dark brown, like a heavy umber or something like that. It's all ready to go. And as his models are all arranged, he's got everybody situated. This is the way he wants it to be. He's now in the other room as this refractive mirror lit through this hole through the ceiling has now projected onto the surface of this canvas upside down, which is a fun part about refraction and how mirrors work. The composition that he has physically, three-dimensionally arranged in the other room. And so he has and he scratches very lightly into the gesso, the rough shapes of the composition, and then picks up the brush and gets down to it. Caravaggio would also use street people, commoners, for the models of his saints that he painted. Taboo. For the time, of course. Why? People were repressed, baby. Oh, you betcha. Well, still are. But, you know, all the classic artists used whatever methodology they'd used in order to create the works that we love so much. Whatever they could figure out to expedite the process for them. They'd have people working in their studios with them. We know for a fact that there are certain masters that you can tell specifically the parts of their works that they touched, whether it's sculpture or stonework or paintings and drawings. We know for a fact that there were certain aspects of compositions that they would have their apprentices do. So there's no rules. Use whatever you need to. Use it whatever way that you find accommodating to you. There's always going to be purists. Well, you have to do everything the hard way. Well, I think you have to do everything the hard way. That doesn't mean everybody else does. Like, you know, doing some pencil cream. You know, why am I doing that? There's so many more modern things. Blah, blah. Yeah. I want to draw in pencil cream. It's the underlying rule of Christopher. I want to draw in pencil cream. So just putting some little textures on the plate. And we're not going to see whatever the item is that he's drawing over here because it's in front of our character. But we know it's there. We know. There we go. So I think that because there's so many different ways that we can tell stories, and I think that because there's so many different things that we can use to do those, it's worth exploring the different medium that's out there. It's worth exploring the different surfaces that you can work on. I have some boards here that are that are stretched in order for me to paint upon, that I am going to do a one-page comic on. That's my plan. Oh, except for Anonymous. Anonymous entirely works only using mayonnaise. Mayonnaise is one of those words that tells people where you're from, by the way. Because people say mayonnaise very differently in different parts of North America. I got a friend of mine that's working for Amazon, and he was telling me that it's been, you know, at a couple different Amazon locations, and he noticed that mayonnaise is one of those words that people say very differently in very different places. Some people call it mayonnaise. They pronounce different parts of that word. Mayonnaise. A little emphasis at different points. This is going to make anybody that hears me talking about this say mayonnaise out loud, or try to imagine, oh, how do I say mayonnaise? I'm not saying it out loud. That's what Chris wants. I will not give him that. I will not give him that satisfaction. I'm not saying mayonnaise. Oh, I said it. I can't believe he got me. So I don't have any yellow in here because there's yellow inside the green, and there's honestly yellow in that orange. So And yellow is, pardon my yawning, yellow is really strong. Just look at my blinged up gold can. Look at how powerful this color is. Yellow, overpowering. Because gold is not yellow. And yet, it's the yellow part that really, really stands out. Gold. Gold, that's what I'm drinking. I'm cool like that. I still haven't done their hair colors. I still haven't really put any color or details in their clothing. You know, just haven't stepped into that yet. Also, I've got no purple in here. That's another thing that you're not seeing. Not to say that there isn't purple embedded inside of some of the pre-existing values. There you go. Yeah, so if anybody's got projects that they're working on, you want to let anybody else know, I always tend to try to welcome people to do that, and you're welcome to do so here. A new project I'm working on is about a fish that wants to be a leopard. I think it's going to be $1 million seller. You know, leopards, right? Swim in the water, bite things. Wait, no. Hinge. Think about the different aspects of you know, cabinets or just any item, any objects that you're drawing. Think about how the different components of those things. Think about how you know, the knobs and where they're usually located. So run the knobs across the front of the cupboards here. Where's the counter end? Where's the cupboarding end in relation to the counter? So we've got our slight green that I'm now moving through the cabinet area. I just wanted to take a moment to try to establish some of those shadows and some of those shapes and forms in the drawers and the underhang of the counter. And we got them. So it's almost like flatting, honestly. When you're going flatting in a digital, as a digital expression, flatting is when you go through your image, your drawing, your painting, your, well, whatever it is, and you flat all of the color values in there. This is a base value, the base color of these different parts of your composition, these different elements that are spread throughout it. Purple Corvette, you know, whatever it is. And the flesh tone for people's different skin colors. You make those sort of decisions of that flat value there. Just helps to sort of set the table, as it were, for taking your image onto the next layer. Little details and things like that. So I had a teacher when I was in high school named Brian Fry. fantastic painter, abstract painter, and has worked with these small sort of, really, really diminished in scale compared to the works that other people would do. And yet at the same time, his underlying knowledge of color, he would do numerous, innumerable washes in these little compositions he's put together, he's drawn up, these different geometric shapes and so forth. And the sheer amount of like laser thin washes that he's doing. And in order to build up the colors that he wants on the surface from all of these subtle shades, all these subtle tones. And so when I saw that that's what, what his paintings were like, there's just something that clicked in my head. And when we're talking about young people, that's few and far between. So, just pubescent boys, forget it. Anyways, I paid attention. I really wanted to understand how he put different combinations together to build up different colors. And he said there's no such thing as a single color, and it has so many other colors in it. My brain blew right up. It was all over the floor. People were like, "Grace, pick your brain up." So that's what I try to think about as I'm laying colors down. Just all the wonderful little colors that we forget are inside there. Your eye knows. Our eye is specifically made in order to catch all the beauty and splendor in this world created. So, but we ourselves might go green, but meanwhile, our eye sees all of the little different values within that green. So when I'm trying to pull up a deeper green, I'll build it up. I'll drop it in. We're getting there. We're getting close. 1:37. A couple more minutes, and that'll be enough for me. I have to get a couple things done, and I've had a busy weekend and a busy Monday as well. So I'm really looking forward to sitting down, sipping tea, and watching something on a movie. Well, and also I've got to do a little recording tonight for audio clips. There's Raul. How you doing, Raul? Welcome aboard. Okay, so now I'm going to build up the hair, making a conscious decision that they both have darker colored hair. But don't just color it all in one flat value. Build it up. Different pressure you're going to put down, right? Different intensity of each value as it comes together. And that's we're going to start to define. Also, don't hardline everything. If you have the opportunity to, if you're, depending on the way you're coloring, of course. I mean, again, even when I say don't do that, I'm talking primarily to myself here. When I say something like, don't put a hard line on that. That's me telling myself that. If you like putting a hard line around your coloring, do it. So I'm happy with how I'm getting separation now by setting myself up with this limited palette and trying to put together the composition that I've set forward and to start to pull up some of these values. I'm really happy when I get these separations. I'm really happy when I get, her hair because of the contrast of color, because of the push and pull of value, having this deeper layering in here, these deeper values in the hair to the values that are in the background, even though that they're structurally built up from the same colors, there is hopefully coming across to the viewer a separation of the shape of her head from the background, what's behind the window. And but at the same time, I'm trying not to put hard lines in here, because those hard, distinct lines, if you have a continuous line that goes around your object, your person, your whatever it is, you're drawing attention to said line. You're drawing attention, and you're separating on a different plane that piece of your composition from the rest of it. And it applies the same way to whatever lines that you're using for building up your image. And that's why occasionally I'll erase out a little piece of something, or you'll see that there's some blue here, and little bits of different values throughout these lines, because if you look at anything, you're not seeing outlines on any of the things that you have around you. So if you're trying to have something to be to some degree of representation of the boring old physical world we live in here, that's something to consider. What way and what means do I want to express my line quality here? Now, this is coming from a perspective of me doing this in this very soft value approach that I'm doing. There's nothing to say. There's nothing wrong. If you want to sit down and draw the same composition in, right, where you've got, this hard lines in the face, and as you've got this heavy outline here, or you've got these heavy marks that you're putting down, there's nothing wrong with that. It's your image. Do what you want, right? People don't get to make any subjective statements towards it, because it's not their drawing. Drawings are for ourselves. So you can come in with another value and put that in, and you can build up your composition in a far more heavy and aggressive manner. Again, your picture. You do you. You do your way you want to do it. Just find a comfortable way for you to work. Some people, this would drive nuts because it takes too long. Personally, I know that drawing in pencil crayon, I find it easier if I work up from a lighter base. But other people come in hard and fast and quick, and they'll look for those marks and those values, and they'll pull together the same face as I'm pulling here in a far more deliberate way. Now, I've also got pieces that I've drawn that I'll color this way, that I'll draw in this way, because I want to try different things at different times, just the same as anybody else. Point is, it's no absolute rule. You're going to find out whatever works for you. You might want to use mayonnaise. Anonymous only paints in mayonnaise. See, this on its own, this statement right here on its own, with no context around it. Somebody joins later on. Raul came in later. If Raul had no idea of whatever context of what we were talking about, and you threw in, and it's a funny joke, but it's funnier to me as it runs through the entire, and so I got a star on it. It's funnier to me as it runs through the entirety of the stream with no context, right? It's far better to me. I like that. That doesn't mean just start shouting contrived things, but use only mayonnaise. What kind of drawings this guy doing? Fella, you can't just use mayonnaise in your pictures. I got to do some recording work tonight. I got to say something for somebody that they need for the project that they're doing. I figured out about 15 different ways I'm going to say it. Didn't ask for that. Doesn't necessarily want it. Why not? Gotta have fun. Can I draw a Triceratops, but as a transformer? Are you talking about one of the Dinobots, Raul? It's the Anderson comic store. I know what Dinobots are. I tend not to draw licensed characters. I tend not to draw, if I'm going to draw a robot, Triceratops, I'll draw a robot Triceratops, but I'm not drawing a transformer. Just because if I want to print my pages, if I want to do, it's one thing to take people. I'm not going to draw Batman. I'm not going to draw, I'm going to do my versions of whatever it is. But yeah, I'll draw robot dinosaurs. I got no problem with that. There's a new Transformers movie this summer. Nice. Well, that'll be a lot of fun. Lots of explosions and people running around and incredulously surviving incredibly dangerous situations that would flatten most people in an instant. I can't get over the only thing more ridiculous than how the driving is in Transformers. The only thing I've seen more ridiculous situations to put cars through is in the Fast and Furious franchise. There's no chance that those cars are going to survive that. We know for a fact, and here's a benefit of being old. We know for a fact that the General Lee always bottomed out when it jumped over the creek in the Dukes of Hazzard TV show. We know that. They had multiple General Lees on the set because of that, but the sheer scope of damage that these vehicles take in these films, yeah, man, going to the mechanic in minutes. Can't stop for the mechanic in robot car battles. You can't stop to go to the mechanic. Yeah, there are crazy robot monsters trying to get you. Well, I hope the new movie's a good one. Sure, a lot of people are going to be very excited for it. There's a lot of people that grew up in their prime period of time was in the 80s that are just lockstepped into that. So any 80s franchise, G.I. Joe, Transformers, Ghostbusters, what else? Power Rangers. They're just so laser focused in on those franchises. Tragically, they missed some really good ones that were around there at the time too, like Michael J. Michael Straczynski or something like that is the name was. And if I got it wrong, I apologize. Anybody knows and wants to correct me, please feel free. He wrote a series called Babylon 5 on television that was just crazy sci-fi that most people forget. It's perfect little fun sci-fi round. 5 seasons that all interconnect. He wrote all 5. Raul says Thundercats. Yeah, Thundercats. That's cat people, for those that don't know. Spacey cat people fighting with old traditional weaponry on alien worlds. I'm not trying to say that like I'm diminishing all this. I'm not. For me, it was the Herculoids and Unga Bunga, Captain Caveman. Trying to think of what else. I remember Thundar the Barbarian, all kinds of stuff that nobody watched. Not the new Babylon Brad Pitt movie. Your uncle liked Babylon 5. Yeah, Babylon 5. Not the Brad Pitt. Brad Pitt is in a new film called Babylon. Cool. I don't like that Bradley Pitt. Too much acting. It's a League of Gentlemen quote. They're going, these two film buffs. They're just 2 guys that live at home. They go to a movie rental place back when we had those everywhere. And they're picking out a DVD to watch. But they always judge it by how many killings there are. Oh, look at this. That's a new Brad Pitt film. What's that called? 7. Well, how many killings has it got in it? And they look at the back. 7. It's just like a great joke. It's about, what's the 7 deadly sins? You know, greedy, dopey, slothy. And then, of course, the line comes in. I don't like that Bradley Pitt. Too much acting, which I don't think anyone's ever really claimed. Although he has some good turns and some good projects. I really like that new film he was just in about, it's a bullet train. But in all honesty, I like a lot of the supporting actors more than I like his character, because the thing that we forget about a lot of leading characters in Hollywood films is Tom Cruise's films, despite his audaciousness and the absolutely incredulous physical activities that he take place in his film, and he does his own stunts. That's not he hasn't got any real character to him. The real character in that film, he's meant to be the one that we live through. We have to experience the film through that main actor. But the characters that all have more personality, of course, is all the supporting stars. They've got far more rounded out personalities than he does, and it's that way for most action films, right? Brad Pitt's the same thing. You've got departure films where it rests more on the individual actors, like, you know, things like 7. Bradley Pitt is very good in 7, and he puts on a fun persona in Inglorious Buggers. Everywhere All at Once is an amazing movie. It really is quite lovely. It really, truly is. I think that film, I like films that push the confines of the narrative. I don't want to spoil this movie for anybody. If you have not seen Everything Everywhere All at Once, and you like films that challenge the conventions of story and traditional film, please watch that film. You won't be disappointed. All right, so we're getting some deeper value to the greenery. But let's get this guy's hair done, and well, I'll get it done anyways. So yeah. Raoul saw that movie 5 times to understand it. Yeah, The Whale is getting all kinds of hype. I don't know what The Whale is. I hear everybody talking about it, but don't tell me. I'll figure it out. Sometimes just saying the film's about this, just okay. Well, there's the whole film. And I don't need to say that you're going to do that, Raoul, but you know what I mean. Yeah, I think I'll continue on this. I got a couple things I want to get done, and I'm pushing on 2 hours, and you know, I got my time limit for when I'm able to do these. I'll be getting this finished off, and some of the intention with the story for me is going to be examining the idea of those things, those little aspects in relationships, whether married or remarried or whatever it is, that those engagements, those where the two individuals that are coming together, there are certain patterns and certain habits and certain things that we need to do together. You need to engage in it. You know, that doesn't necessarily, systems don't necessarily work when it's incumbent on one part of the system to carry the weight of it. And in a relationship, you know, you'll find a degree of dissatisfaction when people, so-and-so always has to do the garbage. That's fine, because this one doesn't mind doing the garbage, and this one really enjoys not having to do it. But should something happen to person A, that garbage is still got to go out, right? And that's where the couple part comes in. So-and-so doesn't mind doing the dishes on a regular basis, and that's fine. Because the other person doesn't want to, and they kind of enjoy doing dishes for whatever reason. That works fine. So what I'm trying to say is that there's no such thing as absolutes. But in instances where, well, neither of us like doing the garbage, and neither of us like doing the dishes, it's not a fun project for either of us. That's where those people got to work together. So I'm going to try to explore a little bit of that in this piece, in my own silly way. Diddy's on our way. Thanks for streaming, Christopher. It was fun. I'm glad to hear that. So yeah, so I'll put this together and get it posted for tomorrow. And I'll be back tomorrow at 2 o'clock. I'm going to take a big shift, big switcheroo tomorrow. And I'm going to draw with paint. I'm going to draw on paint pen on board for doing a one-page comic that way, and see how fast I can, pull a whole image together. And I might not just stick to board. I might do large sweeps of value with a brush just to expedite the process. But that'll be the plan for tomorrow. I don't know that I've done a page purely in acrylic paint before. It's going to be fun. Yeah, so if you're able to, come on by tomorrow at 2 o'clock and take a look at that, and keep your one-page comic suggestions coming in. So one of the ones that came in for today, I will be using for tomorrow's page, and tomorrow's board, really. And if you've got any more, once this stream is over, feel free to put those in the comments underneath the video on YouTube, or put it on whatever the latest post is on my Facebook or Instagram post for the page from yesterday, or whenever you decide to do it. Just put it on one of the things. It'll pop up. Other than that, thank you very much for hanging out, everybody. It's always a pleasure to be able to engage with others, and I really appreciate people stopping by. And I'll do my best to stop by and see what you're doing too. Thanks, gang. Have a great day. Didi also says later. Bye for now. See you too. Keep creating.